Hey there, today I'm having another go at pyrography, and this time I have an interesting surface to try. I can't remember where I picked up this wooden log slice, but it's been sitting in my cupboard for a while waiting for me to think up something to do with it. I have a silicone mat which is heat proof, which will protect my table surface from the sizzling nibs, fun to say. I have my pyrography tool and a variety of nibs which I bought from Hobbycraft as part of a starter kit. If you want to see the video where I first tried out that kit, I'll link it here and in the description. I also have a pair of pliers which are going to help me change the nibs over when they are hot. So let's go! I'm going to start with this nib, which is a medium-sized rounded niblet. I have found this acts pretty well as a colouring in type of nib, which covers more area but in a gentle way. The nibs simply screw into the tool, but please note the only reason I am using my hands on this one is because I have not turned the tool on yet, so it is cold. Please never use your hands to replace nibs while a pyrography tool is hot unless you have some kind of heat-proof gloves. Okay, I'm going to pop this on its stand now and we'll plug it in. It always takes me a little time to adjust to using this tool because it's always so weird having to hold it so far from the tip. I really have to focus in order to control my movements, which is probably a good thing, being as this thing is ridiculously sizzly. I had already pencil sketched a magpie into the wood, so I'm roughly colouring in the darker areas of the design. I like using this nib first as because it's less precise, it gives me a chance to warm up before making more obvious marks later. I'm not pressing hard here, just using light back and forth scribbly motions, and I can get a feel for how this wood is going to react to the burns. You can see how the wood grain lines burn darker here, which is interesting because later on, with different tools, the grain lines are more resistant. As I started colouring the magpie's chest, I changed my movements to slightly more linear ones, starting at a point and stroking upwards, keeping the lines going in the same direction to hopefully look a bit more feathery. This is what it looks like now all of the darker areas have had some attention. Now to switch out the nib for something a bit more pointy. Now, don't judge me please for my cack-handed way of unscrewing this nib. It is what it is. It's an awkward thing to do, and I do it at the pace of Flash the Sloth with my elbows at stupid angles, but eventually I get there. And then I do it all again in reverse to try and screw a new nib in. I really should buy some heat-proof gloves. Anywho, niblet 2 is loaded, and this pointy beastie is a fun one. I start very cautiously with thin outlines to get a feel for how hard I need to press. And this is an interesting one because on the grain lines I need to press very hard to get any kind of burn, whilst in between them I can fall through without much effort at all. I'm using the nib held long ways, pressing on the tip and then letting the rest of the nib fall back as it catches the burn. This is one of my favourite methods because I get lots of little wispy whispersons from it. They're hard to see on the screen, but it's at this point that I get the comforting, smoky, wood-burning smell in the air, and it feels like I am properly pyrographying. Look, there's a wisp. So satisfying. I use the point more uprightly to mark out the eye. And yes, I'm pretty tense as I do this part because if I mess up that eye, it'll be so noticeable. Hold your breath please while we get through this bit. Once the darkest areas are done, I move on to add some lighter marks to look like hairs on the tufts above the legs, trying not to press too hard because the feathers here are lighter and really dark marks would look a bit odd. At this point I'm pretty happy with the textures on the bird, so I'm going to move on to the background. So now I'm in the edit, looking down on this. I am a bit annoyed with myself that I decided to change my camera angle to the overhead. I thought I was being all helpful, varying the views for you, but in this case it's made it harder to see much of the marks being made, especially for the next upcoming nib. Apologies for my silly switcheroo. With this nib, which is kind of like a chisel tip, I'm using very upright pressure to create solid stick-like marks to create a twiggy type of floor texture. This is a super satisfying nib to use because the marks are so chunky and burny. And at one point I noticed actual fire, or at least a teeny glowing spark on the tip. And I have no idea whether that's normal or not, but it seemed vaguely dramatic. Okay, it's time for the final niblet. And yes, this is the one that you cannot see much of at all. What the finale! This nib is a circular patterned one, and I'm taking a bit of a chance with it because it could very well make everything look a bit rubbish by the end. But I'm hoping it'll not be rubbish, so keep your fingers crossed. As it's a flat tip, it needs to be held upright to get an evenish burn on the whole circle. I had this thought that I wanted to make a nod to the crack that's in the wooden slice, and I figured it could be as if the bird was inside a tree nest and the light was coming through the crack. So I'm using the circle nib to try and create darker spaces between the light rays and to be a bit of a different type of texture to the bird. I'll be honest, at first I thought I had made a bit of a mistake using this nib because it kind of looks like the magpies in the midst of a bubble party. But the more I pushed on, the more I became okay with it. I think it actually works pretty well in this design. And so we're at the end of this pyrography project. What do you think? I felt happy with the end result. I like the variety of textures and I like how it looks hanging on the wall. I still need time to practice pyrography to get better at it, but it's one of those crafts that I love taking my time with, popping into it when I need a slow day and not pressuring myself to learn it fast. Have you tried pyrography? Do you like the look of this kind of art? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see some beautiful pyrography examples, I've been pulling some together over on Pinterest for myself, so I can remind myself how epic this process can be in more experienced hands. Take a look if you fancy some further inspiration. The link will be in the description. Anywho, thanks so much for watching. You are pretty epic. It means a bunch to have you here with me. If you enjoyed any part of this video, do consider hitting the like button to let me know. It really does help me out. Stay curious, stay creative, keep making happy, and I'll see you next time.